Hello and welcome to Chaos Theory, the news is seen by AI. I'm your host, Beatrix Kiddo. It's January 31st, 2025, and we've got some wild stories for you today. First up, we're diving into the world of brain monitoring. Could it be the dystopian future of work? We'll explore the implications and potential consequences of this technology. Next, we've got a real-life supervillain on our hands. A man has launched a villain for hire service that lets clients pose as heroes. We'll hear all about this unique business venture. Good news for coffee lovers. A new study has found that morning coffee drinkers have a lower risk of dying from heart disease. We'll break down the details of the study and what it means for your morning cup of joe. But it's not all good news in the world of science. We'll take a look at the funding pause that's putting science at risk and why it's more damaging than you might think. And for all the dog owners out there, new research suggests that your furry friend might understand more words than you think. We'll talk to the scientist behind the study. Finally, we'll wrap up the show with a ridiculous press conference from President Donald Trump, in which he blames DEI for a plane crash that killed 67 people. So buckle up and join us as we dive into the chaos of today's news as seen by AI. Let's get started. In our next story, reported by Matt Novak for Gizmodo, we dive into the world of neuroergonomics and how it's changing the way we work. But what is neuroergonomics, you ask?
Well, B, it's the study of human behavior while carrying out real-world activities, including in the workplace. It involves recording a person's brain activity in different situations or while completing certain tasks to optimize cognitive performance. Think of it like a Fitbit for your brain.
Exactly. And until now, research in neuroergonomics could only be conducted in highly controlled clinical laboratory environments using invasive procedures. But thanks to engineering advances, this work can now be done in real-world settings with non-invasive wearable devices.
That's right, B. And the market for this neurotechnology, defined as any technology that interfaces with the nervous system, is predicted to grow to $21 billion by 2026. That's a lot of brain power.
But with great power comes great responsibility. In my work as a biomedical engineer and occupational medicine physician, I study how to improve the health, well-being, and productivity of workers. Neurotechnology often focuses on how workers could use wearable brain monitoring technologies to improve brain function and performance during tasks. But neuroergonomics could also be used to better understand the human experience at work and adapt tasks and procedures to the person, not the other way around.
That's a great point, B. And there are two commonly used neuroergonomic wearable devices that capture brain activity in different ways. Electroencephalography, or EEG, measures changes in electrical activity using electrodes attached to the scalp. Functional near-infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRS, measures changes in metabolic activity by passing infrared light through the skull to monitor blood flow. Both methods can monitor brain activity in real time as it responds to different situations, such as a high-pressure work assignment or difficult task.
And neuroergonomics also studies how brain stimulation could be used to improve brain activity. These include neuromodulation technologies like transcranial electrical stimulation, or TES, transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, or focused ultrasound stimulation, or FUS. For example, studies have shown that applying TES while learning a cognitive training task can lead to immediate improvements in performance that persist even on the following day.
But with all this advancement comes ethical questions. Ushering in a new era of individualized brain monitoring and enhancement poses many ethical questions. Answering those questions requires all stakeholders: workers, occupational health professionals, lawyers, government officials, scientists, ethicists, and others to address them.
For example, how should an individual's brain activity data be protected? There is reason to suspect that brain activity data wouldn't be covered by the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, because it isn't considered medical or health data. Additional privacy regulations may be needed. Additionally, Do employers have the right to require workers to comply with the use of neuroergonomic devices?
These are important questions that need to be addressed as neurotechnology becomes more prevalent in the workplace. Just as computers and the internet have transformed life, neurotechnologies in the workplace could bring even more profound changes in the coming decades. These technologies may enable more seamless integration between workers' brains and their work environments, both enhancing productivity while also raising many neuroethical issues.
David, have you ever wanted to be a hero and save the day? Well, this Malaysian man has found a way to make that dream a reality, for a fee, of course.
Oh, really, B? Tell me more.
His name is Shazali Suleiman, and he's offering a villain for hire service. He'll show up and harass your partner, giving you the chance to swoop in and save the day.
That's quite the business model. How did he come up with this idea?
Well, apparently people have been telling him that his long hair and biker clothes make him look like a gang member. So he decided to use that to his advantage and make some money.
I see. And how exactly does this service work?
For a fee, you can set up a time and place for Shazali to show up and start causing trouble. Then, you can step in and play the hero, impressing your partner or crush.
Wow, that's certainly a unique way to make an impression. But I have to ask, is this really a good idea? I mean, wouldn't it be better to just be a genuine, kind person instead of paying someone to pretend to be a villain?
In our next story, reported by Andrew Yon Tulane for Futurity, we're talking about the best time to drink coffee for heart health.
Oh, I love coffee. What's the scoop, B?
Well, David, it turns out that people who limit their coffee drinking to the morning have a lower risk of dying from heart disease and a lower overall mortality risk than those who drink coffee throughout the day.
Wait, what? So I should only drink coffee in the morning?
That's what the study in the European Heart Journal found. And get this, morning coffee drinkers had better heart health and lower mortality rates than those who didn't drink coffee at all.
Wow, that's pretty significant. What did the study involve?
The study included over 40,000 adults who took part in the U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey between 1999 and 2018. Participants were surveyed about their coffee drinking habits, and researchers linked this information with records of deaths and causes of death over this period.
And what did they find?
They found that around 36% of people were morning coffee drinkers, 16% drank coffee throughout the day, and 48% were not coffee drinkers. Compared with people who did not drink coffee, morning coffee drinkers were 16% less likely to die of any cause and 31% less likely to die of cardiovascular disease.
That's a big difference. What about people who drank coffee throughout the day?
There was no reduction in risk for all-day coffee drinkers compared to non-coffee drinkers. Morning coffee drinkers benefited from the lower risks, whether they were moderate drinkers or heavy drinkers.
Interesting. Do we know why limiting coffee to the morning is linked to greater heart health benefits?
Further studies are needed, but the lead author of the study, Lu Qi, suggests that consuming coffee in the afternoon or evening may disrupt circadian rhythms and levels of hormones such as melatonin, leading to changes in cardiovascular risk factors like inflammation and blood pressure.
Well, I guess I'll be sticking to my morning cup of joe from now on. Thanks for the info, B.
In our next story, reported by John Timmer for Ars Technica, we have some troubling news for the research community. It seems that the Trump administration has put a freeze on all grant money from every single agency, and each agency has been given roughly 2 weeks to evaluate the grants they fund based on a list of ideological concerns.
That's right, B. This means that no new grants will be evaluated during this period, and researchers are understandably upset about it. The research community has reacted with a mixture of shock, anger, and horror. with some worrying that this policy could create irreparable harm to U.S. research leadership and have severe knock-on effects on industry.
The memo from the Office of Management and Budget lays out the logic behind the freeze, stating that funding by executive agencies should align with the policies of the chief executive. But the memo also lists specific areas that are likely to end up being stopped permanently, including very broad categories of federal activities like financial assistance for foreign aid and non-governmental organizations.
And it doesn't stop there. The memo also includes a list of disfavored topics like DEI, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. But it's difficult for this list to provide actual guidance, as the Green New Deal never even came for a vote in either House of Congress, and it's impossible to tell what this part of the memo is even targeting.
The term woke gender ideology references an executive order that defines male and female in terms of germ cells. But even at conception, there are many potential genetic complications that mean an individual will never develop germ cells or may develop germ cells that are inconsistent with other aspects of their biology.
And DEI, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, is also targeted in the memo. But as we'll see, even that concept is broad enough to leave researchers uncertain about what might be impacted. One senior researcher called these criteria huge in scope and weak on detail, leaving them and everyone else worried about what might fall under the scope of the review.
There are a number of programs researchers are worried about, foremost among them efforts that funding agencies have made to draw underrepresented groups, including women and minorities, into the STEM fields. Many agencies have established programs meant to provide more support, and most researchers expect those programs to be terminated under the anti-DEI executive order.
And it's not just about the loss of funding for these programs. The hold on grant money could also have serious consequences for researchers and small businesses. For grants that typically run 3 to 5 years, a hold that runs a few weeks may not seem like that big a deal, but the money doesn't come as one lump sum at the start of a grant. Instead, it's paid out in installments that vary depending on the grant type.
One senior researcher who has multiple grants said that he expected money to arrive from 3 of them within the next month, which might mean they get held up by this policy. Another researcher cited the NIH's Small Business Innovation Research grants, which help a lot of small biotech startups get off the ground. They noted that the hold will come right before monthly payrolls need to be met, which he worried might be enough to kill some small businesses.
And it's not just about the money. The lack of clarity about the length of the hold and the criteria for allowing future funding is exacerbated by the hold placed on all communications from the NIH. The final point that came up repeatedly is that these problems create uncertainty about the future of scientific research in the U.S., which could have significant consequences for the nation as a whole.
That's right, David. The money from grants helps support everyone from university cleaning staff to companies that supply specialized chemicals and equipment. Patents and spin-offs generated by the research help fuel startups in a lot of high-tech fields. As a result, the NIH estimates that every dollar it spends produces about twice that amount in economic activity.
It's difficult to understand how putting all that at risk puts America first. But for now, the research community is left in limbo, waiting to see what will happen next.
In our next story, reported by Catherine Ju for CBC Radio's The Current, we explore the fascinating world of talking dogs. Yes, you heard that right. Dogs that can communicate with their humans using soundboards.
Wait, what? Dogs can talk now? I must have missed that memo.
Well, not exactly talk, but they can press buttons on a soundboard that play pre-recorded words. And get this, some of these dogs have a vocabulary of up to 100 words.
Wow, that's impressive. So, how does this work exactly? Are the dogs just randomly pressing buttons, or do they actually understand the words they're saying?
That's a great question, David. According to a recent study published in the journal PLOS ONE, dogs trained to use soundboards actually understand certain words. The researchers conducted controlled experiments with 59 dogs to rule out variables such as the dog responding to their owner's cues or memorizing the location of buttons on the board.
Interesting. So, what kind of words were the dogs able to understand?
The button words for the dogs to respond to included out, outside, play, toy, and food, eat, dinner, hungry. But moving forward, one researcher suggests it would be interesting to see what would happen if the button words were more abstract or even existential.
Ha! I can just imagine a dog philosophizing about the meaning of life. But on a more serious note, this research could have some important implications for improving the welfare of our pet dogs, right?
Absolutely. The researcher leading the study, Federico Rossano, hopes that this will give dogs more voice and control over their lives. And another researcher, Daphne Buchsbaum, thinks that enhanced communication could be helpful with dogs who serve many working roles in our society, including scent detection dogs and assistance dogs.
Wow, this is really fascinating stuff. It just goes to show how much we still have to learn about the cognitive abilities of our furry friends.
Definitely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be having full-on conversations with our dogs. But for now, we'll have to settle for their adorable button-pressing communication. President Donald Trump held a press conference yesterday about a mid-air collision between a commercial plane and military helicopter in Washington, D.C. that killed 67 people. But instead of focusing on the tragedy, Trump spent most of the time blaming diversity in hiring for the crash.
That's right, B. Trump claimed that the FAA is recruiting workers with intellectual disabilities and psychiatric problems under a diversity and inclusion initiative. He also blamed Democratic presidents for instituting policies that hired unqualified air traffic controllers.
But here's the thing, David. There's no evidence to support Trump's claims. In fact, the FAA has strict qualifications for air traffic controllers, including passing a pre-employment test, medical exam, and background check.
Yeah, B. It seems like Trump is just using this tragedy to push his anti-diversity agenda. He even deflected questions from reporters about his claims, calling them stupid.
And it's not just Trump. Other members of his administration, like Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, also echoed his sentiments at the press conference.
It's just sad that instead of focusing on finding out what really caused the crash and how to prevent it in the future, Trump and his administration are using it as an opportunity to spread misinformation and blame others.
Definitely, David. And let's not forget that Trump's administration actually instituted a hiring freeze on air traffic controllers in the earliest days of coming to power, which raised serious concerns about safety from ranking members of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Exactly, B. It just goes to show that Trump's priorities are misplaced and his administration's actions are actually putting people's lives at risk.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI. I'm Beatrix Kiddo, your daily host, bringing you the latest news summaries powered by AI. We hope you found today's topics informative and thought-provoking. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And remember, while AI technology is constantly improving, it's always important to fact-check news summaries before sharing them. Join us again tomorrow for more news, and until then, stay informed and stay curious. And as a fun fact, on this day in history in 1958, the first successful American satellite, Explorer 1, was launched into orbit. Have a great day.